We have a very special guest with us today.
Yes. And this is our first guest that we've had on the podcast where we've also had video.
Yes.
This is very exciting.
Yeah, I know. It's been audio only.
Audio only.
Mm-hmm.
So our guest today, I want to do a little backstory about how we met because naturally, I think the universe brings people together in amazing and beautiful ways. And when you're opening yourself up to opportunities, you just let that lead and pave the path. So back in March, Kristen and I had gone to a women's event. It's out at Workscape, this really cool space in the south side of Pittsburgh where this particular company, they design really awesome furniture and office space for, industries worldwide or domestically. I'm not sure if they're worldwide, but regardless, it's run by women. There's amazing women that work there and they do a lot with bringing women together. So this was a women-led event. There was women artists there. There were women entrepreneurs there. There was just women all over the place. So we go and we were just kind of like making our way. It was like an open space concept. So there was like food, there was a coffee station, there was speakers, there was different types of artists there. And we come upon this really cool example of an office, I guess, like an office conference room, if you will. And Teal was set up there. And Kristen and I were just like checking out her art. And she does like large scale woven pieces of different designs and concepts. And we noticed that there was one tarot card there, right?
So my recollection was that we were standing by one of the pieces talking about how they were made. I think Kristen gave me a business card and I was like, saw the name. I was like, Two Mystic Mamas. Perchance, might you be interested in the tarot? Because I had just started working on that project and that opened up the conversation about the tarot from there.
When we started talking to you, the conversation developed it just flowed so naturally. And it was one of those connections that was felt. I really wanted to tell your story like right off the bat because I just found so much inspiration in it. And you were like, not yet. you were like, we need a little bit more time because you were working on this really cool art project. And we'll get into that, but maybe we should do the welcome and then we'll just get back into it. All right. Do you want to join us in the welcome?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
Welcome to Two Mystic Mamas.
That's right. We'll do it again. We'll get you in there. Come on, Teal. Here we go. Like 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Two Mystic Mamas. Yes.
This is exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about your story because I was so excited when I met you to hear about how you started creating these pieces of art. And I think part of what's so exciting about coming and seeing these pieces in person, or even if you look at them on the website, is the story of how you came to make them. And why did you have an emotional connection with the tarot?
Yeah. So this is a journey that I did not know I would be taking in its full completion, which is making the entire reimagining and making the entire tarot deck again. I'd been doing rug work. My medium is punch needle rug hooking for a couple of years and usually work on larger frames, sometimes as big as 3 by 5 feet, usually about 3 by 3 feet. And I was making a gift for a friend who had some tarot imagery tattoos, and I wanted to celebrate an achievement of hers. So I started making a 4 of Cups piece. And I made it kind of close to the images on the traditional Rider White deck. And it was so much fun working on a smaller frame. And there was something about gifting the image and sort of the tradition of gifting a tarot or gifting a reading in that way. And I made another one after that. And that one also was more in the traditional image style, to the point that I even had the little signature mark on the bottom of the piece. And for the third one, I was like, no, these aren't mine. These are sort of replications, and the spirit of them feels generous in that way, but also like I am reproducing something that my heart wants to do a little bit differently. And the first piece was the Hermit that I did in my own style, which is a really important card for me, presenting sort of turning inwards and inner work and kind of stepping back from the life that you traditionally know. And we can talk about this a little bit more later too, but I had shared with you, I think during that first meeting, that I had previously been working in psychotherapy. I was a clinical psychologist. And that this journey into doing art full time really was a process of retreat and reconfiguring my own understanding of myself, my own existence. So there was something kind of magical about the Hermit being the one that welcomed me and invited me into doing this in my own style. And once I completed that one, I was like, that's it. I'm doing all 78 cards. And spent the next year and a half doing that.
It's so incredible. I think there's something really important about the words that you use too. When I pull the Hermit, I always think of the words, take your own counsel. So instead of, searching elsewhere for answers, taking your own counsel and asking inward and looking inward. And for you to go from being a counselor, essentially, and now to being this artist who is investing in herself in all of these ways, I think is like such a huge turning point.
It has been a big part of the journey, along with creating the art itself, has been that process of trust. So to listen to your language and trusting your own counsel, the first step was realizing what wasn't working for me and sort of feeling like the goodness of fit, or that I was doing what I was here to do when I was doing psychological work. Creating art was a big surprise. It felt like a gift. It felt like something I'd always been able to do, even though I'd never used that medium before. And the process of trusting that was okay took a lot longer than the process of actually engaging and doing the work itself. So, a couple of years in now, there's still moments where I'm like, is this okay? Is this okay that I'm doing this thing that brings me so much joy? And the Hermit, was right there at the beginning, sort of as I see it, merging those two worlds of counselor, of the person who sort of dispenses advice, and the person who also needs to leave. Finding that space between the two is an ongoing process.
That's so magical. I mean, if you guys have not seen her work yet, 100% go see it.
The cool thing about what Teal did too is, so she did all of the tarot. Yeah, she did all of the artwork and made them into an actual tarot deck, which is available for purchase. And it does have a supplemental book that you also wrote.
The colors are brilliant. And that's part of like reading tarot too, right? Is that you are looking at what you're seeing. You're receiving messages, intuitive messages at the same time as seeing the imagery. So for me as a reader, what I see is very important because I get a lot of my messages from like what I'm seeing in the card. And I think we talked about this before too, Rach, where like there's cards that don't speak to you, right? Because of the imagery.
Yes. Well, in different decks, I think.
Right.
I think it's so cool. And I find it very inspirational to find people like yourselves that have been on a path that was almost like predestined a little bit to be like, okay, now you have to tick this box, and now you have to tick this box, and then you have to tick that box. And on the surface, it's like you've done everything right. You've followed every rule. You are like the poster child for what a psychologist is, right? Yep. And then you find that place where you're like, I think I'm meant for something more. Like something else is not within me being satisfied. And to take on, because I do want to get into the journey that took you from your so-called career, that took you on a train, that took you around our country, that allowed you that time, and you allowed yourself that time to figure some shit out, and also figure out like what you haven't figured out yet, right? Like you knew it wasn't working. And then how you came to, I'm going to say this wrong, probably needle punch work. Is that right?
Punch needle.
Punch needle. See, here I go. Let's just invert everything.
You were close. Yeah. You didn't relate it to any sort of astronomy. Yeah. You were doing good.
Winning. So punch needle, like that's a form of art that I have very little knowledge of, like crocheting, yes, needlework, okay. This was something super cool on a larger scale, like you said. And then also coming up with the idea for the tarot, but then making it your own and using the colors that you do. Because when you were just talking, Kristen, about how like the imagery is so important to you because of what the messages are that you receive. I'm an intuitive empath. So, and I'm also like my strongest clair is clairsentience. So like I feel. So my initial feeling when I see cards or when I'm doing readings is, how does that make me feel? What does that bring up for me? And so not your deck, but there have been decks before that people have brought in where I'm like, like but that's how I read.
Yeah.
And naturally my favorite card that you have created is the World, which much to my daughter's dismay, when she saw it, she was like, oh, but I have the image,
the nakedness.
I have an image of a naked, the divine feminine on my leg. I resonate very much with the beauty of the female body, the archetype of, and naturally you incorporated a rainbow. So like rainbows are my symbol in the Akashic records. I'm sure you'll find that I like was a rainbow or wrote a rainbow or created the rainbow. We don't know.
Rainbow Rider. That's the PBS special we never got, you guys.
Rachel, well, I loved me some Rainbow Bright.
Yeah.
That bitch, she was my girl. Anyways, so would you say when you made the choice to get on the train, or what led up to that story? I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Would you consider that a spiritual awakening?
That's an interesting question. I would say it is absolutely part of several years. That was a slow, let's unpack it little bit by little. I wish I had a nice, tidy spiritual awakening story. But let me talk a little bit about the train, because we started talking about this early on. And one thing I will say is, since we met each other at that first women's event, it feels like we immediately dropped into conversation. And I was like, okay, we could talk all day.
Right.
And we talked for a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then when we reconnected briefly in June, just to talk about some logistic stuff, it was like continuing the conversation. Coming to the studio last week, it just feels like we have been in one long conversation that just sort of has pause button pressed on.
Right. Exactly.
Rather than trying to pick up or fill things in or so.
Right.
And I'm feeling that, especially as we talk about the train, I'm like, oh, right. We're dropping right back into that train thing.
Yeah.
But let me tell you about the train, people. So I love trains. I have a real soft spot for trains. I love being able to see the world through a window, moving at that speed and going to places you wouldn't normally get to go. And we were just coming off of COVID lockdown, which was a really intense time for me. That was part of a spiritual awakening experience, was recognizing before the COVID lockdown that I was going to and making plans to close my psychological practice. Then lockdown happened. So I finished that work on digital therapy platforms, which was kind of bananas. And then was really in isolation, pre-vaccines, trying to figure out what this next part of my life was going to look like. Art was not originally part of that. It sort of snuck in a few months, maybe 6 months or so after I closed my practice. But one of the things that I missed the most while I was trying to figure out a whole new life was traveling and being out in the world. That's a big part of my joy, is seeing new places and tasting all the foods and doing all the things. So once vaccines rolled out, I bought myself a 30-day Amtrak pass. You can get them for $500. I'm not sponsored by Amtrak.
I have looked multiple times at this and I'm like, how can I go?
Oh,
Just go.
It's amazing. So you get 30 days in just regular old coach class, but you can hop on and off the train a certain number of times, and you can go as far as you want, as long as you don't overextend your hop-ons and offs within a 30-day period. So I got on this train with my little lap frame to make rugs, with the idea of sort of doing I wasn't going to be performing art, but I liked the idea of making art in a public space.
Sure.
And rode the train up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, saw a friend, went out across the West, visited Montana, my home state, which is a person to me. I love Montana. Hopped off the train there and then went down to LA to see some more friends. and then back to Pittsburgh. So every stop along the way, I was sort of working off of images, creating these rug and art pieces based on what I'd seen through the train windows. So it was like these little still moments of this sort of epic journey of a trip that I took. And when I came back, I'd committed to doing this for myself, but I started to really think about how I could do this for a living, basically, how I could make this not just a side project, because I was spending all day, every day doing it. But there was something about taking the train and literally moving my body around the country in that way and seeing all these people that were so important to me. And like you mentioned, weaving as part of this process. I'm not using a loom, but my work is woven fiber art. It is yarn and material. And there was something about the storytelling and the traveling and the connection with people. And then coming back, I had my first solo show based on pieces that were made from that train ride. So I think that was almost like an initiation process that gave me permission to think about it differently. And also, like, it was, you've talked about the Fool's Journey on here, and the Fool's Journey is implicit to the tarot deck interpretations. But there was something about going out onto this train ride for no other reason except to make art and see what happened and be out in the world again. And then coming back and it leading to a show that sort of transmuted the energy and made it into something different. Yeah.
The symbolism is deep. And it's deep in a lot of your stories. Like, you tell stories and I'm immediately like, that's so symbolic. Like, holy shit. Like, wow.
I mean, it immediately resonated with me too. And one of the things that, like, I keep coming back to is when, and again, this has to do with imprint as well, like you're talking about, is when you are on that train and you are weaving, for lack of a better term, this imagery together, you could almost see every place that you traveled in the background imagery of what you were creating with the cards, whether that was intentional or not.
Yeah.
But even more than that. So, and I didn't think about this until you were speaking. Something that's really important to me and my heritage is braiding hair, right? And every time I braid my hair or my daughter's hair, I braid intention into it. And I always speak whatever good affirmations and intentions that I can into the act of doing that. And I was just thinking about how literally every fiber of your transformation is in that art, in those original pieces. And you've left a memory in the fibers of that wool.
I love that so much.
And I'm like, oh, that's like, you talk about energy, because I felt it, right? When you go into the space and you see it all hanging there, you feel it.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, this is why, like, even beyond the reasons why you would feel the energy and, how wonderful you are and how much we love you, like, that whole story, that whole journey is literally energetically imprinted into that wool.
I love that. There's two things that just made me think of immediately. And one is, I don't know if I've talked to you two about this yet, but did I tell you about making hair rugs?
What?
No.
They have not started yet, but for the past 3 years, I've been collecting hair from primarily women in my life who have donated hair after haircuts, or I'm pulling it out of hairbrushes or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I've had this image in my mind forever. I had very, very long hair when I was a child, and there's some like good memories and some tough memories about not being allowed to cut my hair. But I wanted to had this image come to me very early on of one of my large rugs, like a 3x5 foot, that is just a braid from
we can
top
contribute.
to bottom. Please do. Please do. I'm always so
Rachel's just going to be over here. My hair.
Well, does it have to be cut hair?
So it just has to be hair. So
because we talk about this before, where we're in the showers.
Yeah, no,
that's we have really thick hair, and we're constantly like throwing it on the side of the shower, and then
I write my husband love notes in it.
I think it's one of those weird things that I thought I was the only one that did it. And then like in secret, I told Kristen once and she was like, oh no, I do that. And I was like, wait, is this a thing?
And now I'm here in public on the podcast.
Yes.
Saying, oh yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
Because that's actually how I started collecting most of my own hair was like, just scooping that
Yeah.
shower hair.
Yeah. All right. So we'll give you some. All right.
So, but
here we go.
it doesn't have to be in any form because you have to like card it like wool and then spin it. So I got myself a little electric spinning machine a few years ago that didn't really work for me. My friend, my delightful friend who came to visit for the show from Minneapolis, brought a spinning wheel for me in a box that she packed up.
What?
And
You know, we could find one of those very easily here from back in the day with a little pump pad.
that's what it is. It's
Is it
like
really?
an old school spinning wheel.
Yeah, like
That's
antique.
incredible.
No shit. We
It's
could
incredible
totally do that.
and
yeah.
it works. So I need to get that up and running and play with it. But that's basically what I've been waiting on, is having the technology to spin.
Yeah.
But I am still collecting hair. So I have little bags and most of them are dated. People have told me,
Yes.
like, this is from this
It's like
haircut
the
or here's what was
DNA
happening in my
of-
life. Yeah.
Now, does it have to? I mean, naturally, it wouldn't have to be women. I know some men that have long hair, but
Mhm.
are you looking primarily to do it from like women's hair?
That's what was calling to me at the beginning.
Yeah.
So like anyone who feels like donating hair, I'm happy to
Yeah.
take it or consider that. But I do want it to be from people that mean something to me.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I've known, when I've gotten my hair cut or things like that, I've taken my own hair, but I have not accepted the generous offerings of bags of other people's hair,
No, yeah.
which would be easy to get a whole bunch of hair in one place. But no, I want there to be at least
Symbolism.
a personal connection
Yes.
or like a step
Right.
away from a personal
Yes.
connection.
Yeah.
So I've had people send me some of their cat's hair if I've like spent time with those animals, but most of it is person
Grizzy
hair.
could probably fill a whole fucking garbage bag.
So
Grizzle
that I don't know when the time will be because I'm still collecting and I'm still needing to
That's so
keep
cool,
teaching
though.
myself spinning. But yeah, so it's hearing you describe it that way immediately
Well,
brought that up.
Right. And, like I am protective of my energy in my hair too. So,
Mhm.
like, as someone that feels that way too, I don't know that I, like, for you, like, that you would be a protected person that I would feel like, you wouldn't do anything negative with my hair. Yeah. I mean, I love that though. Like, from the very beginning when we met you, it was the feminine energy that is just throughout everything that you're doing.
Mm.
And is that something that you feel like was like a departure for you from your life before, or has it always kind of been like that your whole life?
Yeah. No, my first response is absolutely a departure. I mean, I grew up hearing a lot of things that I believe to be true because they were told to me from my parents and
Mhm.
grown-ups in my life. And then I lifed and was like, wait a minute. Like I was told that things were generally equal amongst the genders and sexes. I was told that I can actually do whatever I want. I was told that, I was told if I did these particular things, going to your point about the checklist,
Yeah.
that this is what would bring me happiness and success.
Yeah.
And as I got older and learned more experientially and also was getting deeper and deeper into psychology and literature and other things that I've studied deeply over the years, I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I'm just sort of cosplaying
Right.
patriarchy in a different way.
Right.
I can do anything I want as long as I follow these rules. And these rules were very much about sort of performing at a high level in academics and showing up respectability politics and sort of putting these things forward that show people, that signal that you're doing good things in the world.
Mhm.
And
you listen.
you listen and you give.
Mhm.
And so there were a lot of things that I absolutely loved about psychology.
Sure.
I love
Yeah.
exploring human experience. I love nerding out on theories and reading all the literature. But ultimately, and this goes to your point that you were just making about braiding in experience and holding energy. My job as a clinical therapist, and I loved a lot of it, but was essentially to hold other people's energy and to also hold back my energy, to give it out in ways that were supportive or that help people process what they were going through. But it was not to share energy in a reciprocal way.
Correct.
And it was not to, I was very good at holding energy non-judgmentally, but I had never really been taught practices about releasing energy, about the sacredness of energy, about how to protect your energy, about how to cleanse your energy. And so by the end of my clinical practice, there were times when I would come home and just dry heave because my body couldn't hold everything that I was holding without a way of letting go of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's real.
Yeah. So the process of putting energy into artwork, I think, was almost an accidental practice since I had not been taught how to work with moving my energy in ways that were purposeful and intentional.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't lose any of myself
Yeah.
by making this piece, but the energy moves.
The energy moves and
Right.
it also renews at the same time, right? It's so interesting that you bring this up because I think in our society, cognitive clinical psychology is important and our country needs a lot of help, mental health. And there's not enough psychologists.
Nope.
And so when you have, that's that balance of there's so much that people need, there's not enough people to give it. And it's that relationship too of like finding the right psychologist or the right therapist that matches that person, right? Because they're not all cut the same.
No.
They are not all the same. And I think that there's that burnout too. When you were in school studying psychology, was there any, I don't want to say quantum physics because that's like way too scientific, but like, was there any was there energy? Was there any talk about energy? Was there any of like, how do you release it? How do you work with it? How do you protect it? Because that mental load, I know when we do readings, and this was taught to me from my first mentor, is after a reading, you release that person. Like energetically, you release them. You don't hold on to what the reading was. You don't hold on to anything that it had to do. Like it's not yours to hold, right? Like, because the messages come through us. They're not of us, right? But that was the first time that I had really worked with understanding energy and protecting myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm an empath, I always felt drained in certain situations because I was literally being drained mentally and energetically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my program would have said they tried. And I think they did talk about energy in the language of clinical practice, but we talked about things like transference and countertransference, which are referring to the feelings that come up that might not be mine, but I'm sort of picking up on in the nonverbal communications. So if a client that I'm working with, I come in one day with my hair pulled back and it reminds her of the way her mother used to wear her hair. And there's a sort of crackle in the energy. Something is coming up that I'm putting out there that she's responding to that's not about me, or vice versa for the clinician. Right. So from a theoretical standpoint, we would talk about that. And how do you recognize when this is happening or that sort of thing? But then, and I think this is pretty common in a lot of programs. Historically, if you were going through a program, specifically one that was more analytic or depth psychology, which is more of the like unconscious processing and dream interpretation and looking at symbolism, which was a lot of what I did. You used to have to go through your own really intense psychoanalytic process. Pros and cons to that, right? Like you go through, but then your supervisors and trainers are the ones who are also analyzing you or getting feedback on your work and all sorts of problems.
That's messy.
And there's still, are versions of that sort of pop up where you're like, ooh, the boundaries can get a little bit intense between the academic and the self-therapy part. But I feel like since that sort of went out of fashion and cannot be required anymore, that there's almost been a step back too far. That's sort of like, and self-care is really important. Make sure you do that. And it's like, I've never met a psychologist or a student who's gone through the program who doesn't roll their eyes, and just like, oh my gosh, how many times have you been told, can get pretty intense. Be sure that you take care of yourself. And we're like, but how? Tell me.
Would you like to teach us this?
Yeah. Like we always would joke about like, oh yeah, another bubble bath. Cool. But the idea of sort of what you do with your embodied energy, focusing on the client, as we should be. And also that's half of the infinity loop, right? So, and again, I think some of that messaging really reinforces the idea that, and especially I feel like, again, I'm going to be very general, but sort of like male presenting clients got a little more of a pass to be clever. And I found myself very much sort of feeling the pull of your job is to be a clinician, but also be essentially a form of mothering to clients and to be very present and to give what you have to give. And yeah, I think a lot of the sort of helping professions, little mini air quotes there, if we are already trained and set up to think that showing care and love is to give everything we have till there's nothing left to give, the old giving tree trope, that we can be really good at that. We've been training for it our whole lives.
Yep.
And so I can go into that session room and be like, take it all,
Yep.
I'm here. And so to be learning in my 40s, the process of sort of how to actually take care of myself has been humbling and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm really fucking glad that I'm figuring it out now and not,
Waiting till retirement.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah, I feel that on a soul level. Like,
Yes.
to be learning in my 40s how to take care of myself and feeling like I was never taught at all.
Yeah.
Is, like you said, it's very humbling.
Yeah.
Part of what you're doing with your punch needle work, though, is like a somatic practice. And I personally have benefited. We've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
We had a somatic coach on as a guest, and I benefited more in like my first 2 sessions with her than I did in years of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, I will sing her praises to anybody on the earth or not. And because I would imagine that you are gaining some sort of therapy through that.
Yeah.
As you were doing that.
Yeah. And again, I find some of the things that have been the most healing for me have been by accident. And I shouldn't say by accident, but that's how my brain sort of framed that. But I'm like, no, like it came at the time and in the way that I needed to receive it, because my brain has been so trained to be all of me. I think I mentioned this in a conversation with you too recently, but this sounds a little hyperbolic, but it feels really true. I think my thoughts think that if they're not thinking, that I cease to exist. Like it feels like an existential crisis if my brain is not online and being analytical and thinking about how to solve this problem or what does this mean. And that feels like you're doing something. And, going through graduate school and all these things, you get a lot of praise for thinking all the time and having sort of nuanced analytic thoughts. And I don't knock that. It's an important part of being me and being human. And also it's like, I picture the trees that get like, the grates around the bottom and part of it just grows off in another direction. And it's like my brain cognitive parts got really, really big and strong over here. And some of the other pieces around my body and embodiment were just not given space to grow or learn.
Right.
So yeah, the process of sitting down for like 10 hours a day and doing a repetitive motion, that feels so good though. It's like getting in the flow and like just, following enough of a structure to keep you engaged, but actually thinking gets in the way of that. And so in order to do what I found myself loving to do, it sort of took my brain offline in ways that I wasn't expecting. And then once I had the feeling of what that felt like in my body, again, brain can do a lot of things well, but I have these ideas about what it will feel like if I'm this, or if I have boundaries in relationships, it'll feel like this.
Right.
And then when it happens, I'm like, oh, it didn't feel like that at all. But now I know what it feels like. And so having that somatic experience, it was like, oh, how can I find this in other ways now? How can I get back to a place that I now have a physical understanding that feels good? It's like finding another brain in my heart space.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think, one of the things that I have found in your stories too is and I find this with myself as well, is the unlearning of beliefs and how do we take memories that we hold dear that bring us, a sense of joy from our childhood, from our upbringing, but also question why and moving forward from a belief that no longer serves.
Yeah.
And I think that, talking with you about the art too and how it has it has taken on a life of its own, that it was always going to take this path, but you allowing it and welcoming it and just embracing that, I think is so cool. And I think that that is another part of just the message out there in general, that like you can start new chapters in your book. And I think a lot of people that are in roles like yourself that have accolades behind them or awards or degrees, and it's like you can't transition once you've put in all that work.
Yeah.
Like, who do you think you are that you're going to be like, I'm going to be an artist?
Totally. It's
you know, I think that that message is really fucking important.
Yeah. It's such a deeply, it's like the most personal, like sunk cost fallacy. You're like, but I put these years, I put this time, but I paid this money, but I have this job. Like the idea of, see, now the words that come to me, which I think shows being a few years out from this now, is to put it down, which sounds nice and gentle. And I can feel that now. Like, it's okay to put something down. At the time, it felt like, why would you destroy this? Like a real like violence or something.
Right.
And like the ways it's like having these really kind of mean, aggressive guardrails that tell you that like, once you picked your path, like, well, you know, suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
Like, this is what you're doing. And figuring out why that's happening. I don't think you have to figure it out to change it necessarily.
No, you
but
just have to trust.
But you have to find ways to trust fall.
Yes.
I'm curious. I think what your experiences have been with pivots like this too. But I remember my absolutely wonderful supportive partner knowing that I have those sort of like reactive, like, oh my God, I don't want to fuck things up. I don't want to, like, am I okay? Am I like being selfish? What's
safe?
going on?
Right. Yeah.
But he just very gently asked, like, this, he's like, I love what you're working on. He's like, what do you think you're going to do with this? And he asked so kindly to avoid setting off those triggers for me, because it's like, productivity. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I remember like hearing his gentleness and taking a moment and just being like, I have no fucking idea what I'm going to do with this.
Yes.
And it felt so exhilarating and so terrifying at the same time.
Oh, I feel that in my bones.
Just
I feel
like admit it.
Nope.
To just be like, I'm going to keep doing this, but I have no idea.
Yep.
I don't have a plan.
All right. Well, you said two words earlier that stuck with me, and they're so simple, but it's and also. You are allowed to be who you were. That still lives within you. And also, you can be this incredible artist. You can be a storyteller, just like us, right? Like we can be all of these things and also have this podcast, you know? And I mean, as women, right, we are told that we're supposed to succeed in certain types of ways as we're growing up and as we're learning. And I think a lot of being in your 40s, and we've gone down the perimenopause train, like we've talked about this, is unlearning all of that and allowing yourself to be while still and also growing. Yeah. Right? So we can grow without having to always fix ourselves.
My giving myself permission is always catching up with like the universe being like, sorry, sweetie, like this is what we're doing. And I appreciate that the messages got clear. I appreciate that there was not as much of an option for me to talk myself out of the things that were presenting themselves to me. And every time that something happens where I find that trusting myself or trusting what is coming to me works out, I'm like a little kid every single time who's as surprised every time it works. But I also have those like last little breadcrumbs of surprises that I can like look back and be like, okay, you can still be shocked when things work out when you follow your heart. But now you have like 12 examples. Now you have 15 examples. Like you might start trusting. If you can't trust in the moment yet, you can trust maybe like what you've seen happen up until now. And that makes it easier.
Right.